What would you do if your disco stick came with porcupine spines? Does size really matter? Ever wonder if some guys are packing a backup? And what do cornflakes have to do with your Robert Downey Jr.? We answer all that and more on today's episode of the Infographics Show. Weird facts about the penis. Number 15. Penile spines. Alright, let's kick it off with one of the weirdest ones. Imagine your manhood came with built-in spikes. Yeah, feeling the shivers yet? Well, it did have them once, but the DNA code for it disappeared before Neanderthals and modern humans diverged. The belief is that having spines allowed your personal pogo stick to get erect faster and promoted more promiscuity. Dongs with spines seem to be more prevalent in species that are more promiscuous, like cats. These spines don't look like the spines in your back, though. They're little keratin speed bumps. It makes you wince just thinking about it, doesn't it? So what's the deal with these strange vestigial growths? Around 6 million years ago, these spines existed in a common ancestor of chimpanzees and humans. Over the centuries, minor genetic changes have made human pleasure poles smoother and more simple. Scientists don't completely know why certain deletions happen, but one theory is that it's because humans generally form monogamous relationships. Sorry to all the swingers out there that missed out on all the spiny goodness. Human guys don't really want to have to play the who gets there first game. But hey, if they did, Netflix would have a whole new dating show. However, the research on this is tenuous, and it has yet to be proven definitively that monogamy is fully responsible for the change. The mystery of the wiener barbs continues. In chimpanzees, these small barbs are designed to make it painful for the female to remove them. This makes it so she's less likely to mate with other chimps after partnering with one chimpanzee. Okay, so this is getting a little depraved. Let's move on to something less cringe-inducing in the world of peculiar genital facts. Number 14. Size does matter. Sometimes. When it comes to discussing the merits of your Little Richard, people often debate if bigger is better or if technique matters more than the size of the tools. Statistically, size does matter for some women. Sorry, fellas. These women have found that they're more likely to have a vaginal orgasm if they're with a man with a longer rod, thanks to deeper stimulation of the vagina and cervix. A 2013 study reported that women believed the ideal dingling size was based on a man's height. Men who were taller looked better with a longer schlong to match. But if you're feeling insecure about the size of your equipment right now, fret not. Why debate size when you can just dazzle them with moves from the Kama Sutra? Speaking of size, the smallest natural penis ever recorded is a man from Miami with a hog that measures 1/16 of an inch. He has no interest in surgery and seems to have embraced his size. On the other side of the spectrum is a Mexican man with the largest sexual anaconda at 48 centimeters long, 900 grams in weight, and 25 centimeters in gland circumference. Perhaps together they can form some kind of bizarre superhero team. Instead of the X-Men, maybe X-rated men. I don't know, we're just spitballing here. And let's talk about shoe size for a second. According to the old wives' tales, you could tell a man's size based on how big his shoe is. You might not be surprised to learn that, like most old wives' tales, there isn't even a little bit of truth to it. In 2002, the BJU International published a study that confirmed there is no correlation between shoe size and the size of your dingus. So let's take our completely non-penis related shoes and kick that myth to the curb, shall we? But if you're a man about town, you're probably wondering, what factors really do affect the size of your favorite body part? Don't worry, we got some data on that for you too. Number 13. Permanent shrinkage. One thing studies have taught us is that smoking can impact just how long your Donkey Kong ends up being. That's right, it can shorten it by as much as a centimeter. What causes the shrinkage? The calcified blood vessels that appear in smokers can reduce erectile circulation. So put down the cigs or your tube sock might end up looking like it shrunk in the wash. Weight gain can also make your manhood appear to shrink even when it hasn't. Because your Woody Harrelson is attached to the abdominal wall, as the belly expands, it pulls the pocket rocket inward. This causes it to look smaller than it is. But don't worry, if you lose weight, your Nimbus 2000 will return to its original shape and size. Actually, any penis might be longer than you think it is. It's attached to your pubic bone, and a lot of that is tucked up inside your pelvis. So while it is inaccessible, it is there. Just maybe don't try to use that as a pickup line at the bar. It probably won't help you. You might also have been told your Jean-Claude Hot Damn is a muscle, but it actually isn't. It's made up of erectile tissues and not muscle. When you flex your kielbasa, you're actually flexing the muscles in your pelvic floor. And that was just a fun little fact, but we're warning you, the next fact is not fun. It is absolutely horrifying. Don't say we didn't warn you. Number 12. Handle with care. You should be careful with your one-eyed monster because it can break. No, it doesn't have any bones to break. What you're actually damaging is the phallus itself. It's known as a penile fracture. Handle your meat saber with care or you might hear a snap that'll haunt your dreams forever. Your disco stick is made up of 2 columns or cylinders that are like sponges. They fill up with blood to make the penis hard when you're aroused. One column is the corpus cavernosum and the other is the corpora cavernosa. They're covered in the tunica albuginea, which is a protective layer. When you break your small soldier, what's actually happening is that you've torn the tunica albuginea. It often comes with a loud popping or a cracking noise and the possibility of extreme pain. You'll notice bruising and swelling from blood buildup under the skin, and you might notice blood in your urine. It's probably one of the most horrifying things a person with a wood rocket can experience. So just be careful with your little guy. It can break during sexual activity, energetic masturbation, or even just falling on it, rolling on it, or hitting it. Oh, we're not done with the horrifying parts yet. Stick around to the end and we might give you something to feel less existentially terrified about. There are other ways to damage your Peter. Peyronie's disease is when scar tissue, known as plaque, forms under the skin of your willy. As men get older, they're more likely to suffer from it. Bending your pork sword too much in a certain way during sex can cause small tears in the tissue. Over time, this gives your skin fluid a curved shape. It can cause pain and erectile dysfunction, and it's more likely to happen to people with vigorous sexual and non-sexual activities that might injure your third leg. It also happens to people with certain autoimmune disorders, diabetes, and erectile dysfunction who have a history of prostate cancer treatment with surgery. If you have family history of Peyronie's disease, be sure to check with your doctor. Now let's take a break from the horrors and get weird and downright crazy instead. Number 11. Double trouble. Did you know it's possible for people to have 2 trouser snakes from birth? The condition is known as diphallus, and it happens around every 5 to 6 million live births. It's not always 2 fully formed penises though. It can appear in different ways. But it almost always requires some kind of phalloplasty, a type of surgery that focuses on saving your Private Ryan. The book Doubleheader, My Life with 2 Penises, by a man known as Diphallic Dude, discusses what it's like to have 2 little Elvises in the building. The author opens up about his life while refusing to reveal his real name or identity. However, it's difficult to prove if Diphallic Dude is real, since he chooses to shroud himself in such secrecy. His story seems fantastical, but according to researchers, it's not out of the realm of possibility. If it is all true, Diphallic Dude can expect an invitation to the X-rated men superhero team. He's even already got a superhero name. And if you're wondering, yes, there is a female version of Diphallus. Some women are born with 2 uteri or 2 vaginas. But enough about strange medical anomalies. How do the penis and the brain, 2 body parts often considered to be mortal enemies, actually interact? Number 10. Night moves. Your saber can become erect 3 to 4 times a night as part of your REM sleep. If you ever wake up with a hard-on, that's why. You probably woke up at that moment during your REM sleep cycle. It's not a sign that you've been having wet dreams either. It's a completely average thing your body does. It's not completely clear why the human body does this. We only know that it's totally safe and normal. In fact, if you stop experiencing them, you might be dealing with erectile dysfunction. Your spine has more say in when you ejaculate than your brain. It's known as the spinal ejaculation generator. Your brain does, of course, play a role in all this, but it's why you can't just ejaculate on demand. And if you could, maybe you'd be able to become the 4th member of the X-rated men. Sorry, we'll stop running that gag for now. Thank you for your understanding. Number 9. Blue ball blues. Speaking of myths, we've heard men complain about blue balls before, but is it real? In a way, yes. It's known as prostatic congestion. It happens when the prostate becomes swollen by excess fluid, like blood. It can be relieved by an orgasm, but it can also be fixed with a simple aspirin or a warm shower. But what about semen? One of your Jack Nicholson's 2 main products. What's the deal with that? Semen's made up of more than just your sperm. It consists of around 96% water, 2% sperm, fructose, vitamin C, sodium bicarbonate, various proteins and enzymes, and minerals like magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and zinc. Fructose nourishes sperm, while the vitamin C helps keep the sperm healthy. The sodium bicarbonate is what protects the sperm from the acidic environment of the vagina. Bet you never knew you had that much going on. We're aware that this video has given you certain things to worry about, from broken penises to blue balls. So let's see if we can dispel a few common groin rifle worries to make you feel better. Number 8. The crooked man. Sometimes people worry about the direction the weather vane is pointing in, but an erection can point in any direction and be perfectly normal. It can point straight ahead, left, right, up, or down. One study collected data on just how much it varies. Based on the study, if your wiener pointed up, they would measure it as 0 degrees. If it were pointing forward or horizontally, they would count that as 90 degrees. Around 5% of participants were 0 to 30 degrees, almost 30% were 60 to 85 degrees, another 30% were 60 to 85 degrees, just under 10% were 85 to 95 degrees, roughly 20% were 95 to 120 degrees, and 5% were 120 to 180 degrees. In fact, very few penises are completely straight. They can curve in any direction, and a curve of up to 30 degrees is considered normal and healthy. But what about penises that have boldly gone where no penis has ever gone before? That's right, what about erections in outer space? Number 7. Out of this world. From what research tells us, it's more like a taffy pull than a traditional erection. Scientists are actually worried that sex in space might not be viable. In order to keep up the blood flow to the lower parts of the body, you need gravity. In space, it rises to your head and chest. Due to the lack of gravitational force, it's difficult to get erect in space. Currently, there isn't a lot of research funding being dedicated to space sex. However, NASA is interested in learning more about it, especially as humans grow more inclined towards space travel. It's not even clear if space sex would be a pleasant experience. As of right now, we know it's difficult to get aroused in space, but it is not impossible. As to conception, pregnancy, and birth, it's unclear what that might even be like. And it's not exactly easy to find volunteers for that kind of experiment. Speaking of fertilization, number 6. Sperm Olympics. Your King Charles sends out a lot of sperm when it ejaculates, somewhere between 80 and 300 million sperm. They have to cover at least 6 to 7 inches in order to reach an egg to fertilize. When they are first ejaculated, they travel at a speed of around 28 miles per hour, but eventually they slow down to a speed of 5 millimeters per minute. By the end of the whole ordeal, only around 200 sperm will ever be able to come close to the egg. Starting from ejaculation, it'll take them almost 15 to 45 minutes to get there. This may sound slow to us, especially if you compare it to when you're driving your car, but by sperm standards, that is incredibly fast. If you were to scale up sperm to 6 feet, they would be 4 times faster than an Olympic gold medalist. If there is no egg, the sperm can wait inside the body for up to 5 days. Number 5. Not what it seems. Pop quiz. Have you ever noticed the seam on your donger? This is called the penile raphe, and it's a sign that your Captain Corrigan was once a labia. Remember, all humans begin life in utero with female anatomy until 7 weeks. When you notice a seam on your scrotum, it's a scrotal raphe. The raphe is present in female bodies, it extends from the anus to the labia majora, and it becomes the inner lips of the vagina. Speaking of the physical makeup of the penis, let's talk about foreskin and its surprisingly controversial removal procedure. Number 4. Off with his head. Circumcision, the removal of the foreskin of the penis, isn't an uncommon practice. It's often connected to religious or cultural beliefs. For our Weird Facts list, we'd like to talk about surprising advantages and disadvantages, and you're free to argue about which you prefer in the comments. People who have been circumcised are less likely to develop penile cancer, and it can prevent foreskin infections or phimosis, a condition where the skin is tight and it cannot retract behind the head of your underwear warrior. Circumcised people are less likely to contract a sexually transmitted disease. The downside to circumcision is that removing it also removes thousands of sensitive nerve endings in your Lex Luthor. This can reduce how much sexual pleasure someone experiences. It can also lead to a rare condition known as medial stenosis, where the opening at the end of the phallus narrows and it becomes too small. It's often fixed with surgery. While complications from circumcisions are rare, it does happen. This can cause infection or injury to the penis or urethra. And if for some reason that made you hungry, we got a weird fact about wieners and certain famous foods for you. Aren't we just so thoughtful like that? Number 3. Corn Hub. If you ever enjoyed a nice bowl of cornflakes in the morning, you might be surprised to learn that they have a dark history, one that has a lot to do with your self-pleasure habits. Cornflakes first came into being in the 1890s, and they were created by the Kellogg Company, which was founded by Keith Kellogg. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, Keith's brother, was raised in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, a Christian denomination that observes Saturday instead of Sunday as the Sabbath. His medical research was heavily influenced by his religious upbringing, and he even became the head of a church-founded health institute. He believed that the blandness of the cornflakes would help make the minds of those eating them stay pious and pure. Yeah, he was really a weird dude. Sadly, this isn't just a silly tale of a weird guy who thought cereal should be bland to keep your thoughts pure. J.H. Kellogg actually promoted painful and punishing procedures. In order to curb young people's masturbatory urges, he would have circumcisions performed, or he'd put pure carbolic acid on them. This was not a man who we should have been letting near breakfast cereal or anyone's privates. It is unclear who is actually responsible for cornflakes, but it was meant to be a boring meal that would lead to abstinence and less masturbation. J.H. Kellogg believed that avoiding sugar, alcohol, and other indulgences was the key to remaining abstinent. If anything, his bland cereal was at least a step up from his barbaric practices. It also doesn't actually accomplish what he hoped it would. Otherwise, it would probably be a lot less popular. Now, let's get morbid. Number 2. Deadwood. Did you know you can get an erection when you die? This is known by several names like terminal erection, death erection, rigor erectus, and angel lust. It's not uncommon at all, and it's particularly prevalent in people who have died from hanging. It's believed it's due to the pressure on the cerebellum from the noose. And we've got one more utterly crazy story for you. Number 1. Napoleon Bonaparte. You might have heard the tale of Napoleon Bonaparte's amputated Le Petit Caporal. It was supposedly taken off shortly after his death in 1821. As the story goes, his tiny emperor was cut off by his doctor, and then in 1977 it was sold to a New Jersey urologist at an auction for $3,000. The urologist kept it for 30 years, for reasons we really can't explain. But was it really Napoleon's musket? While it's not impossible it could be, it's hard not to have our doubts. The New York Times' Judith Pascoe described the object as barely recognizable as a human body part. Channel 4, a British television channel, aired a documentary called Dead Famous DNA. They described the dingus as very small, as it only measured out at 1 inch. It is likely that its small size is due to how old it is, and it's not an indication of how big Napoleon would have been while he was alive. The current owner has allowed only 10 people to see the coveted imperial dong. It's never been recorded on camera, adding to the doubt some people feel that it may not be real. It was supposedly put up for display back in 1927. A writer from Time noted that it looked like a maltreated strip of buckskin shoelace. It has been compared to leather, a shriveled eel, and beef jerky over the years. Now, you really can't say we never teach you anything. For more videos like this one, be sure to check out how an erection works and weird facts about male foreskin.